Hey, I'm Aeon.
And I'm the Lioness.
And you're listening to Box Number 512 Podcast.
Grown Black Trans Woman Talk, changing your world one conversation at a time.
The show begins now. Hey, welcome to another installment of Box Number 512 Podcast, Grown Black Trans Woman Talk. I am Aeon.
And I'm the Lioness.
So let's start with life updates. You go first, sis.
I was just gonna ask if I could, girl. So life updates. I voted today. Excited. So a couple things. I recommend that everybody go out and vote early. They in Georgia in particular, they're already playing the reindeer games with the systems crashing and starting back up. At both we had to leave one precinct because the line was 10 lines deep. They had to start, the lines were so long, they had to start stacking the lines next to each other. And it was 10 lines across. And it was wrapped around the building. And it was like, so one, it was exciting to see that many people. Two, it was a little bit nerve-wracking because of COVID. That's why we didn't stay too long, bitch. And three, the poll workers were coming out and like telling us, like, we're so sorry. The system is moving slow, so slow that when it is working, it's just taking us a while and it's crashing. So there were people in there that were waiting. Like at one point, we were in that line, we waited for maybe like 30 minutes. But in that 30-minute period, the machines were down. So we went ahead and punched because we were like, well, we're not finna wait. And because at this point, it was getting close to the rush hour, like people getting off work trying to vote. So we were like, and this was the day crowd, by the way, that was that long. So I can only imagine what's going on now. Shout out to the poll workers here in Georgia. When I did go to the second precinct to vote, it was a lot better as far as crowds. It was still a long line, but they were moving more efficiently. But then right after I voted, when Tierra was like literally behind me in line, I was able to get my information in and they gave me my little card to go to the machine to put in the vote. Behind me, the system was crashing and it took Tierra like an additional 45 minutes and he was right behind me in line to actually vote and to get his card to vote. And so just for those people out there who are in Georgia, the people and the precincts were saying that they've complained to the Secretary of State, but that there's really not anything that people are trying to do to address it. And there was a Black lady that was hinting to me. She said she had been working 15 hours the previous day, and she hinted to me that there's only certain counties that are having this problem. And so, and you know how that goes. There, you know what counties it was. It goes without saying. So if you live in Georgia, particularly if you live in one of these minority majority counties, where it's a lot of us or other type of brown, Black, and all kinds of different other folks, people of color. If you live in one of those counties, Gwinnett, DeKalb, Fulton in Georgia, Cobb, bitch, motherfucking Clayton County, all the way on down, girl. If you are in Georgia, you need to be trying to vote early. The workers are wonderful people. I mean, no shade. It was like everybody was really understanding. Even the white poll workers, girl, were really giving like, I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. Matter of fact, it was a white man that was really telling us all the tea and where to call to complain. So just y'all go out and vote. It's important. I know in different states, I think it's like 40 states right now that are doing the early voting. If you have the opportunity, I would suggest you do. Definitely wear your mask. They're not going to let you in the building without it. So just make it happen. Other than that, life is good. No complaints. My last podcast this week had opened to great reviews. It featured my husband, Tierra Turner. So feel free to check that out. I also did a live after show with Chris Patterson this last weekend, and that really got a lot of great responses. Aeon also was a great participant in that conversation. I also did a giveaway on that podcast after show for the Lioness Still Lives podcast, and with Chris. And for the ladies that did comment on the thread, you will be receiving your mace in the mail. It was donated by V Prince and Associates. Her and her friends, some cis women, got together and decided they wanted to help trans women be as safe as possible with the way they knew how. And they went online and, you know, she went and bought some really, really cute little maces that can like hook on your purse or be in your purse and not too much. So just for those of you girls that did comment and, you know, participate in the thread, I will be sending it out to you. And thank you for everything. So girl, that was my update. What about you?
Girl, just starting another work week. This weekend I was basically working all weekend.
I was gonna say you was busy as fuck, right?
Yeah, working all weekend, and we were closed for Indigenous Peoples Day, so I tried to relax a little bit. But today was my first day back to work, and you know, literally everything that goes on, particularly with this administration, affects my job. So I have a lot on my plate. So just trying to work through everything and not get stressed out. Also, I'm intending on voting tomorrow evening. So here where I'm at in the DC area, they actually have started, they've had early voting open for like a couple of weeks, and now it's moving into like the second phase of early voting where they're open like satellite locations. And then I checked online, my registration has went through for the new state that I'm living in. I'm in the DC area. But I saw something on the news today that gave like, so I'm in Virginia outside of DC, and today is the last day to register to vote in Virginia. So when I was looking, just doing research, it's been multiple news stories that said that the power went out. Somebody cut the power at the Virginia Department of Elections headquarters.
Wow.
And it was an accidental outage on the last day to register to vote.
Oh wow! And they're not going to extend it, of course.
Right. It's just like
wait to the day you're fucked.
Right. So then it took them like 3 weeks to process mine.
Wow.
It took them like
so the fix is in, y'all. Please vote.
Right. So one of the satellite locations is like in walking distance of my apartment. So and the first day of the satellite locations opening is tomorrow. So like I said, I can't wait. Like I just have anxiety that I have not voted yet. And I just want to do it as soon as possible so we can get that man up out of the White House. Also trying to establish care with like an LGBT center so I can get my trans health care. I was plucked today, and I'm gonna say their name, Walker Whitman. It doesn't make any sense. So girl, I literally, so with the type of insurance that I have like a HMO. So in order for me to go see specialists, I have to be referred out.
Right. You gotta go to that little place first and then they
right.
Yeah.
So I have different medical needs that require me seeing specialists. So at first I tried to go to the specialist, not realizing how my insurance worked. And then once the people told me, I've been like, for the past week, it's like I've been reaching out to Walker Whitman trying to set up an appointment. So first I sent them an email. I did everything I was supposed to do. They didn't get back to me. So today I'm like, well, I need to call and get an appointment because I don't, need to keep waiting. Like I kind of want to, handle my business and get what I need to get done.
Right. You settled in a new city. You want to get it together.
Right. And that particular location, well, now with a lot of the locations, because even in Howard Brown, you can't just walk up in there. And they say on their website for Walker Whitman that they're not accepting walk-ins. There's no waiting areas. Cool. I respect that. Bitch, make sure your online intake or your phone system is up and running. Like, girl, I called on 3 separate occasions, and it's just like I have like exorbitant wait times, and then the wait will be so long that the call will disconnect.
Oh no, ma'am.
So and girl, all I want to do is schedule an appointment to get up in there.
Damn.
Like, it's not like I'm trying to, like, I need to, and I don't even really need to see the doctor. I just need to see the doctor to, like, establish initial contact and get my referrals so I can go on about my business. and
Exactly.
live
You're
my
not
best
trying to
life.
do something major, so that shouldn't take all of this back and forth. Were you able to get in contact with anyone at all?
No, well, like I would get in contact with people and then they would put me on hold. And then I would be on hold so long that the call would disconnect. So it's just like, so I sent the email back complaining and then I filed a formal complaint. But it's just like, Miss Walker Whitman, get it together. Get it together. Like, to me, it's just unacceptable. Especially when all I'm trying to do is set a damn appointment.
Yeah.
It's unacceptable to me. Get it together. I hate health insurance. I hate the way that our healthcare system is set up because like going through all of these barriers, bitch, it makes you just want to say fuck it and not, be on top of your health and then just wait till you go to the ER. Cause it's just like it's so much red tape. And no shade, girl. It kind of makes me wish I was back in Illinois on my fucking Medicaid, my Medicare. Cause you did no shade. Even when I had my Illinois state Medicare, even when I was going through my chemo, I didn't have to pay a dime. And I could go to any hospital I wanted to that was located in Cook County. And it wasn't all this
That
red
sounds
tape.
great, sis. But you done moved too close to the South now, bitch.
Yeah, girl, but it's frustrating and like me not be, girl, I'm a very like task oriented girl, and me not being able to cross this off my list, girl, fucked up my mood. So now it's like now I have to like do this again tomorrow, which is taking time away from me focusing on my work assignments at work to get this done. Because it's like I have other things I need to do.
Exactly. And you're trying to be on top of your healthcare. Imagine the people that don't have your persistence, that don't have your ability to advocate like that for yourself, to file a complaint, that don't feel empowered to be able to do that. Like this is really, really discouraging. And people are blaming COVID, but no, bitch, that's bad systems. Because I'm just trying to call and make an appointment.
Right. And like usually I would have just bust through and popped up on them, girl, but you can't, I don't want to have the police MPD called on me, but it's just like, damn, can I make a simple little appointment? And I'm like, I don't even want the doctor to touch me. I just want to get referred out so I can, get, the things I need to get done so I can live the best life I can live throughout all of this that's going on in the world. Damn.
I mean, for real. Well, I'm sorry you're going through that, sis. Keep us updated on that progress.
Yeah, but anyway, work is still work. Family life is still at a pause, as per the last show. Not really entertaining a dating life, although I've been meeting guys, but I've been meeting guys that I can tell are really nice guys, but like I'm not ready to go down like the dating path. And because I guess because I'm a woman and because I'm very hyper aware of emotions, like I'm the type of girl, it's like I can see that you really want to get to know me and be nice, and not saying that I don't want that eventually, but I'm not going to waste your time and string you along. Like not, I don't feel like I'm in the best position to be like the best like dater or friend. Is I just I can't, because I don't want to be that girl that turns a guy off to the girls because my attitude is nasty.
You know what? I wish more women in this world thought like you. I really do wish more women in the world thought like you, because at a certain point, you may want and desire a relationship, and that doesn't change. But like you got to know your ebbs and flows and where you are in the part of your life. And I like that you are self-aware enough, and that you can do the self-analysis to be able to say, you know what, not right now. And that's dope. But that doesn't mean it's forever, because I do know you to be the kind of girl that does want that. But I like that you're letting other girls know that want it. You don't have to be thirsty.
Right. No, I've been meeting like, some of them are assholes, but I've been meeting guys that are not only are relationship material, but that are trying to get to know me. And, I just have to be very clear, like, I only have the capacity to give this. And since these are clearly your intentions, I'm just going to bow out, because I don't want to sour your perception to the girls or think like I'm playing on your time in that way. So, it's not even to the point where guys will want the relationship or want to get to know me, but they feel like they have to settle for like a sexual thing. I'm like, no, I'm not even going to, like, because if you want something more, I feel like you should find somebody that's there. I'm not there.
I'm not going to distract you.
Yeah, and I'm just going to be crystal clear, because I wouldn't want somebody to do that to me. And I just don't feel like I would be like, I don't feel like at this particular point, I don't feel like with a dating situation, I don't feel the warmest right now. And I feel like I could be neglectful. And I just don't want to do that to anybody.
I feel you.
So but I've been having a lot of guys like approach me, or maybe because it's getting colder. I don't know.
But boo season is upon us.
Right. Yeah, no.
But I was gonna ask you, did you have you been watching the Barrett confirmations? I've been glued to the TV all morning before I went to vote, and then
girl, I'm already, my anxiety is already high. I don't need to, I have no desire to watch that lady sit up there and lie, acting like she's not going to rule the way her track record has shown her in the past.
What I love that the Democrats did today was so there was a Democratic senator, I believe he was from Ohio, or I'm not sure, but I don't want to give the wrong state the credit, but there was a particular okay, well, anyway, there was a particular a man today that really went in, and he went in about how dark money has been used to fund how the Republicans have used dark money in these like non-disclosure organizations, like these groups that have like names like Federalist Group or whatever, and they look like pretty innocuous names, but it's really a way to wash the identity off of money and donate to causes. Well, these big super PACs and these big funding things have spent over $250 million on making sure the judges that they want get elected. And this has been over a period of time, but particularly for her, they've spent tens of millions of dollars in advertising, in all kinds of stuff. And they were saying how this is uncommon. And particularly with her being forced to be confirmed before the end of the election, all the Republicans backpedaling, they did a great job of showing, even though she was trying to play Miss Neutral and had her black kids behind her today, I think they did a great job of showing they would not spend this amount of money on you if they didn't feel like there was some type of payoff. And in your past record, the way they was pulling up, like paying attention to this really let me know you have to be careful when you want to progress in law, because they were reading her for shit that she wrote in reviews back in the early thousands, bitch, and in articles. They were going back through her previous dissents and cases and pulling out like one sentence, girl, and making her explain it. Like, they were really going in. I will say she does appear to be very knowledgeable about the rule of law. She does appear to be extremely knowledgeable. Like, I will not doubt her competence to be a judge. I do believe that she has that, but you could feel like she refused to condemn President Trump she refused to acknowledge that President Trump does not have the constitutional authority to like hold back the results of an election. And she refused to acknowledge that. She was like, well, I would have to see and talk to my law clerks and talk to these people. And they were like, no, girl, ultimately the buck stops with you. So if you're not like, he's preparing for this to go to Supreme Court and putting you there for that purpose. And you don't think that, that's something we should talk about. And, she was really using Ruth Bader Ginsburg's, I guess she made a famous quote about not giving preludes or prepping or talking about what she would do in a case, because as a judge, she wants to make sure that she's staying out of that. But but she's using that to not answer any of the questions. So they're asking her about stuff, and she's like, well, I would have to see the case as a judge. I don't want to violate the jurisprudence, whatever the fuck they were calling it. And like, it was just really, really interesting to see the backpedaling, the stepping, and how every Republican person was pretty much licking her cunt, baby, giving her the most, trying to make it seem like she is the most unfair and unbiased. It's like, but if that's the case, why are y'all so pressed? So this is an interesting process. I feel like it's knowledgeable for me, at least, to kind of get, because trying to get. Today I got a better understanding of why she's so problematic. And so then I think, even though it was kind of stressful and kind of intense to watch them people sitting up, they lying like that. I respect the fuck out of the Democrats today for putting up a good, showing how she could be compromised simply because of the amount of money that's been invested in her.
Right.
Yeah. So it was
at the end of the day, it's going to be up to the Republicans to do the right thing over being allegiant to the administration.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm happy that the Democrats are putting up a good fight, but at the end of the day, it's out of the Democrats' hands.
It really is. It really is. Like, she's going to get confirmed because there's really nothing to truly disqualify her. Right. You know what I'm saying? So she's going to get confirmed. I peeked that tease today, bitch, because they didn't really have no dirt on her. And then, and though they're making compelling arguments about the potential for her to vote a certain way, she's doing a great job of just not answering any questions, really, except for the Republicans that are footballing her these easy ass answers, and she's a constitutional law professor, so she's able to answer constitutional questions very easily. And people were so impressed that she doesn't have books or no notes. She's just off the top of her head listing, extreme, like going deep into case law off the top of her head. And that's cool. But yeah, bitch, I still don't trust you.
Right. Yeah, girl. I see it's on, on my news ticker and on my YouTube, but like at the end of the day, what's going to happen is going to happen. It's out of our, when we look back at this in 30 or 40 years, our legacy won't be tarnished because the people that know better are standing up and doing the right thing. It's the people on the other side that are literally ruining their legacy. And this is the day of yesteryear where we just want to forget about what you did. Like, we are in the social media, like everything is documented. You're literally ruining your legacy to maintain power
and destroying our country.
Right.
Yes. So true. But I wanted to bring that out there because the Supreme Court may not seem, it seems so distant to so many people, but her opinions on Roe v. Wade that she said in the past, all of these things, she considers her mentor to be Judge Scalia, and a lot. And anyone that knows anything about how the Supreme Court has decided, he was an extremely conservative judge, and they actually were quoting her talking shit about Chief Justice Roberts because he upheld the Obamacare, and they brought up stuff that she said about that. So do not be deceived by wolves in sheep's clothing, y'all. We have to be very woke, and we have to remember that they are planning to pull a stunt with this voting, and even after the voting with the results. So we just got to be vigilant, and we can't afford to be passive.
No, absolutely not. So yeah. What's going to happen is going to happen. I'm planning on voting, and isn't the revolution is with the people. So, as long as we still have breath in our body, I'm still fighting. And even once Kamala and Joe Biden get in, we're going to be pushing back against them because they're not talking about no defund the police. Last time I checked. So,
the battle continues.
Yeah, the battle will continue. There's always going to be something to push back against. So, oh, girl, let's just get into our topic, girl.
Okay, let's move on.
So last week, we lost somebody, somebody very monumental to our community, somebody who has really created the foundation and created a tapestry for our community that everybody who talks about transness, particularly like Black trans feminine transness or Black
Mm-hmm.
transness in general, like that whole framework, like
Mm-hmm.
she it's because of her, it's because of the work she did, it's because of the legacy that she's left behind. um Monica Roberts, who's the creator of the Trans Griot blog that has changed so many of our lives.
Yeah.
We lost her last week, and it was unexpected. It was painful. It was just a reminder of how fragile and how precious life is, and how you just have to treasure people and value people, because people are not here forever. And like the Trans Griot blog, it's changed my life. It really, when I came across it, it changed my life. And then once I got to know Monica Roberts as a
Mm-hmm.
person and meet her, and have a relationship with her, and just have her pour into me and speak positive things to me, and it just, to me, I saw her as the icon, and I was able to see her as the person. And I'm glad that I was privileged to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that I think that makes the loss even more painful.
I agree. Brianna, do you mind if at this moment, I have an article that I pulled up here from the New York Times, kind of doing, and I think they did a good job of kind of like giving a just a brief synopsis of her. And so, do you mind if I take a second?
Sure.
So, this article in the New York Times, written by Stephen Kurutz. I'm sorry if I mispronounced the name. Kurutz. Kurutz. It talked about the late great Monica Roberts. So Miss Roberts started her blog, Trans Griot, in 2006, at a time when coverage of transgender issues by the mainstream media was limited. Monica Roberts, a transgender advocate and journalist who chronicled the lives and sometimes the deaths of transgender people through her blog, Trans Griot, died on October 5th at her home in Houston. She was 58. Her mother, Maple Roberts, confirmed the death. She said that Ms. Roberts had complained of chest pains the day before her death, and a medical examiner found blood clots in her lungs. In the West African tradition, a griot is a storyteller, and Ms. Roberts set out to tell the stories and history and lived experiences of the transgender community. She started her blog in 2006, and it was limited and deemed often offensive by those being covered. She covered transgender issues she covered transgender issues that were limited and often deemed offensive by those that were covered. On the blog, she announced herself as a quote unquote unapologetic Black trans woman speaking truth to power and discussing the world around her. And that's how she described her blog. And I just wanted to put that out there because even beyond her blog work, I just wanted to make people know that she was someone that was interested in having the written legacy of our lives, our issues, our struggles, our loves, our successes being told. And I think that's a special place in our community that a lot of people are occupying. A lot of us have content, but she was actually able to chronicle decades of trans living and the issues that affect us. And like Brianna said, I had the privilege of knowing the Miss Roberts, the person, and I called her Auntie Moni, and she was someone that I could always reach out to, no shade, like in the inbox or the DM if I had any concerns about anything. She was the one that has advocated for me to be able to go to conferences and things. I never forget, they had a pioneer panel at this is my first time at the Philadelphia Trans Health Conference, and this is when I met her in person. And this was around, I want to say, probably 7, 8, somewhere in there. And I remember being so excited to meet her in person, and then in person she was so cool. And they had a trans pioneer panel, a trailblazer panel, I think is what it was. It was a trans trailblazer leadership panel, and all of the other people on that panel were people that have, been heavy hitters that did it for a long time. And one of the panelists that was originally supposed to be on it wasn't able to make it. And my trans mother, Lisa Newsom, was on the panel. But anyway, long story short, they asked me to be on the panel. A group of elders, including Charlene from Philly and a lot of other people, came over to me at the conference because I was teaching some workshops that year, and they were like, "Do you mind being on the panel?" And I was like, "Oh no, I haven't done anything." And I remember Monica really, in her very direct way, letting me know that we all trailblazers, and she was really bigging me up in a way that was very shocking because, again, I had just met her, but she respected the shit out of me. And I guess she's so connected to community that she had kind of known about me before. So it was just very affirming. And I just remember that love being there. And immediately it made me feel embraced. And I was able to be on that Trailblazer panel. And, Kim Watson was on it. Like, it was a really one of those heavy hitter panels. And I was, hey, baby. My dog came and spoke. Sorry, y'all. But go with your daddy. Go. But I was really, really, really impressed by that experience. And like I said, she came here to Atlanta a few times. She actually came for one of the trans girl was murdered here a couple years ago in 2016 or 2017, I believe it was. And Monica Roberts came down and was actually, and this was a very community kind of ad hoc, because a lot of money doesn't go behind it, a lot of our funeral services, but the community came together and threw this memorial for the girl. And I remember Monica Roberts doing her typical laughing before she could finish her joke, and she was really trying to bring a joy to the space, and it ended up being quite the celebration. And she sang along with us. We were singing traditional songs, and she was singing along with us, and it was just really, really affirming to have her there. And I know that she's somebody that really did the work in a world where a lot of these girls are in it for the likes and the clicks. I appreciate that she was an elder that could have just sat on herself and been by herself and did her thug thizzle, but she chose to dedicate her life to service.
Yeah, Monica was one of them people, like, if you were a bad bitch in community doing it, she would come and find you.
Yes, God.
And most like icons and people that, have the status or have the name don't really give that. But she was just that type of figure in our community that if you were really doing the work or you stood out, she already knew who you were. And she would reach out to you. I just remember every time she came to a city, she would want to go to the different organizations in that city. And be a part and really meet the people and talk to the girls. The first time I met Monica, I met her at the White House. And it was like during the Obama administration when trans
they were letting us in, girl.
Right, they were constant events at the White House, and it was my first time meeting her, and she was on the panel. And then I think they had like a lunch at the LGBTQ task force where they brought a whole bunch of the girls back there. And I'm gonna be honest, when I finally got to meet her, I thought she didn't like me. I thought she didn't like me because, like, I don't know. I guess like her, and like, I don't know. It just felt like she was being short with me. And it was weird because it's like, oh my God, this is Monica Roberts, and I hope I ain't do anything to offend her. So I had walked away from it, like feeling like she didn't like me. But seeing her more and getting to know her more, like, she really, she not only did she like me, like, she really respected me, and she respected my position and how I saw things. And she was very encouraging. When I went to law school, I was raising money to get to law school, and she graciously put my GoFundMe on her blog, and she supported me going to law school. And in fact, because my GoFundMe was on her blog, I was able to raise all of my money and meet my goal.
Wow,
And then
that's powerful.
I remember another situation in Chicago when I was going to get into a little altercation, and the only reason that it didn't go down is because she yanked me up and dragged me out of the hall. She was like, "You cannot do this. You are going to be somebody, and this is not worth it." And like like Monica was like just one of those forces that was like bigger than life, and like you don't really see that with a lot of the leader, like when I came out being trans, it was just certain leaders in the activism space that like they just seem bigger than life, and they just seem like, you know, powerful, and like they just had no fear in the world. And Monica's definitely amongst those class of like trans women that had, you know, seen it all and just that are bigger than life. And I remember her yanking me up and dragging me down the hall and was like, "You cannot do this." Like really, but really having my back. But
Right. She saw something in you and she didn't want that incident. While you were very, very valid for being upset, she knew that you're not a girl she was gonna let make a mistake.
Right.
And I live for that. And that's the kind of woman she was. And you know, speaking to your first experience with her, she is so the thing about Monica is that she is a very, very direct person. And sometimes that could come off as gruff. And sometimes like she can also be a little reserved. And there were times where, like I said, I've seen her. I've seen her multiple times over a period of years. But there were times where she was more and less social with me per se. But I never took it offense, because when it actually came down to when the rubber hit the road, like she was
really
always
with you.
Yes. And I never forget how tight her hug was the last time I saw her. And that is what I would cherish for the rest of my days. I'm low-key mad because I had a couple phones ago. I had a phone that had I had pictures of with her in it from that event. And I don't know how that didn't get uploaded to my Google Photos, but I don't have them anymore, or at least I gotta find out how I can get them. But I know everybody's putting up the pictures. I know you put up some wonderful pictures with Monica Roberts, and you know, I guess for right now, I just have memories. But baby, even beyond, even without me, even before I met her, her articles were things that I shared. She informed conversations that I had with my friends and family. She just really was a thought leader. And I want to take this moment also to give a shout out to her family, her chosen family, her biological family, her mother. I know she was extremely close with her mother, but also shout out to Dee Dee Waters. Shout out to Diamond Collier. These are the girls that consider her close personal friends, that actually you know, that organized with her, loved with her, spent time with her on a regular basis because they live in the same state. So shout out to those ladies. I know that this is very hitting you very personally. And I know Dee Dee, I know she was the one that actually took to the internet and shared the story. And you know, and I know people were giving her a lot of pushback for not wanting to say all the details right away. And I think she handled that situation so gracefully.
Mm-hmm.
And I was one of the voices.
I love her so much.
I love her so much. Shout out to you, Dee Dee. I really do live for you. Just because you real as fuck, and I love your nails, and I just live for the fact that you don't play about yours. You don't play about yours. You don't play about your people. And I'm that way too. So that's something that I have to respect. And while I don't think I've engaged with you very much in person per se, I can't wait to the day where we can finally have a key girl, because I really feel like I'm going to like you, and I'm looking forward to meeting you. Diamond, thank you for your interview. I know she gave an interview with the, I believe it was the ABC affiliate in
Houston.
Yes, in Houston. And she gave a wonderful synopsis of what Monica meant to us, and just talking about her life and legacy. So shout out to Diamond. I know that, you know, that was a very emotional time for you. So for you to be able to take that moment and use your light and your platform to talk about somebody that helped us. And I always say, we run because it was women like Monica Roberts, that generation of women that had to do whatever they had to do, that really, really were about the business and not so worried about what it looked like. It wasn't even popular nor attractive to even do it. So it wasn't like you could get the clout that you can get now from being an advocate. And these girls, because of the work that she did in conferences and policy making and advocating and lobbying on White House, we have the laws that we have today. And I feel like, unfortunately, because this community has gotten to this privileged place where a lot of things are accessible to us that weren't before, a lot of people, because they were so concerned about what it looked like, they probably, well, not probably, I know for certain that there were people in the community that because, you know, they were so focused on titties and passability and all of that, they don't receive women like Monica Roberts, or they wouldn't have even received the Marsha P. Johnson. They wouldn't have, you know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of these girls now have gotten to this place where they are so focused on what it looked like, and the privileges that these girls have gotten for them, that they are jaded and shady. And what I do respect is one of the last posts in this last month that Monica posted that really got a lot of traction was her talking about how CDs and non-conforming individuals were instrumental to the movement. Because even though she herself is a trans woman that's, you know, got all the clout she could want, she still wanted people to know that even the work that she does has been in tandem with the community at large, and not just these particular girls who have these particular looks and these particular bodies with these particular surgeries. This work in community was founded on the backs of people who did not have the capacity or even the money or even the desire necessarily to want to be a full fembot. But because they believed in progress and they believed in fighting for everyone, they took the hit. And they went through all of the judgments and all of the pushback and all of the fighting for then now these laws to happen and these insurances to be able to cover surgeries and for us to be able to even just navigate. You know, in the early thousands, it was still illegal some places in the South, in certain municipalities and smaller towns or whatever. It was still on the books, illegal and a problem for you to be who you are. It was hard to get recognition. There were barriers to getting paperwork. And because of the work of Miss Roberts pointing it out online and really exposing a lot of the flaws in the system, a lot of shit got changed. And she was well respected in Houston, friend of the mayor, friends of senators. She was a really, really powerful woman. And if we were to go off of what it looked like, some of you bitches would have missed your motherfucking blessing. For
right.
sure.
And to think about how she brought it through as a dark-skinned Black trans woman in fucking Texas,
right?
To make her mark on the world. Who is doing that back then? Like, who was? And Monica's like only a year older than my mom. So like, who was really doing that back then? And even I want to give credence to her impact in the world of journalism and like reorienting how we cover trans deaths. Because I think her blog was born out of her actually taking stories that misgendered us and dead named us when we were the victims of violence, and reorienting them to respect us in death, and you know, paint us as the victims and give us our dignity. And to do that in 2006 when she started that blog was an act of resistance, and it was a radical act. And just that impact alone, like for one person to change industry wide, you know, how we report these things. That and the fact that goal extends well outside of Houston. Like, now it's a national thing that when you have somebody that is transgender that is murdered, there is a certain way that you cover the story. And that is largely in part due to the work of Monica Roberts through her blog, and also her not only just the reporting of the stories, her unearthing all of these stories about us from history. Because we first transition, what did they tell us we crazy, they tell us we don't exist, they tell us, oh, this is new and y'all are forcing this on us. But she actually did journalistic work of unearthing us from the past. We have always been here. And every story, I remember like a couple years ago, I did like a Black Trans History Month where I highlighted 28 or 29 different Black trans people. Almost, if not all of those people that I highlighted, especially the older ones, I found out about them through the Trans Griot blog. And you have to think about the dedication and the research that went into that. Going all the way as far back to the 1800s, documentations of Black trans people.
Yes.
Like that's revolutionary. And for all of these, like, when you have Black trans celebrities, we don't just get to be celebrities out and about. Now, when you have your Laverne Coxes or your Janet Mox, you have to go out there not only promoting your work, but with a politic, that uplifts our community.
Yes.
Monica Roberts' blog and her history and her research and everything she put in has created the foundation for how we present ourselves, for those of us who are celebrities, for those of us who have platforms, for those of us who have a politic. Like, you can't say that Monica, you can't talk about Black trans folks and not include Monica Roberts herself and not include her work a part of that conversation. Like, you just don't. Because before her, we didn't know the history. We didn't know the language. We didn't know, like, you can't talk about Disclosure and the history that was in Disclosure, the film, and not talk about Monica Roberts.
And just for those of you who, I'm sorry, what were you going to say, sis?
I'm just saying, you just can't, like, this modern, like, trans rights movement that is largely led by Black trans feminine folks, and not to exclude the trans men, because y'all are there too.
Definitely. And she worked very closely with the trans masculine community.
But with the politic, the Black trans feminine politic, Monica's work and everything that she's done from when she started her blog on up, she has created the foundation for a lot of that.
Definitely. For those of you, I mean, we're talking about how important she is, but I also want to take this moment, because what I did do this week was I really went back through her blog, and I really took my time to just kind of grasp and get a better idea of who she was as a person. So she also, not only did she, it wasn't like, so for those of you who wanted to, who may think, oh, well, I'll go see her blog when I want history. She didn't just talk about history. She kept up with current events. She had, she was an advocate, an avid sports person. So she kept up with the NFL. She kept up with, even, I think her last post on her website is about the NFL season results and, you know, the things that she was following and her picks for the week. And she was very interested in diverse things. She covered trans pageants. She covered, you know, people who did things in history currently, even, like, you know, if you wanted to know, you know, what was going on in trans life, Mia Mason, she covered her historic Maryland congressional run. She covered a lot of different things. And just so, if you want to really know yourself and know more about the world and how Black transness and transness in general was evolving and the work that was done, she was an excellent, Griot was the perfect name for what she was. She was really a chronicler of our existence, and y'all should really take part in that. I just want to take a second also to acknowledge some of her accomplishments. So she was a GLAAD Media Awards Outstanding Blog Finalist 2014, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. She actually won the award. She was the winner of the 2018 GLAAD Outstanding Blog Award. She was a member of the National Association for Black Journalists, and the National Association for Hispanic Journalists. She also was someone that she appeared at the Bolero Project. She's been on ebony.com. She's written for the Huffington Post. She's written for The Advocate. I mean, this lady was wide-ranging and encompassing. And for those of you who did not have the privilege of knowing about her in life, you need to know your founders. And if there was a founder, it was her. Among her many honors were the Virginia Prince Transgender Pioneer Award, the Robert Cole Call of Service Award, the Barbara Jordan Speaking Award, the Barbara Jordan Breaking Barriers Award, and the 2020 Susan G. Hyde Award for longevity in the movement. So I just wanted to take a moment to speak her name and to honor her achievements, because for those of you who need to see those things, because I know there are a lot of girls that really go in about relevance, you can't get more relevant than her. And I feel like y'all need to really remember that, and really remember that. And part of knowing yourself, part of really being okay with yourself, part of embracing yourself is embracing our culture. It's not just about your individualized transition, because you didn't transition in a vacuum. There were other people in the work. There are other people in community. For those of you girls out there that miss I'm stealth, and don't get me wrong, I understand the necessity for some girls in certain locations to be discreet, but you should still not be the kind of person that doesn't appreciate the community and the leaders. And I think we need to tear down the logic that there's two types of girls, or the types of girls that's advocate girls. There's these type of girls and that type of girls. Like, we need to stop doing that. We all need to embrace each other. And if you really, really are saying that you are a trans woman that knows herself, you have to know your history. And this is her Trans Griot, her blog. It was transgriot.blogspot.com. That is somewhere you need to go.
Right. Yeah, y'all definitely need to go through the blog, educate. Like, it's our history, it's our culture. But yeah, her I'm just happy that I got to make it to the last BTEC conference. Because everybody just had a good time. And I just remember her smiling the entire time. Like, and again, that goes back to, I don't know when we'll ever be able to be in a conference setting like that again.
Conferences.
But that's also why it's so important to support our own. To support our own stuff and love on each other. Like, when I went to the BTEC conference, it was a love fest.
I was just about to say, for the girls that don't know, these conferences be love fests. Like, if you're a girl that really, really needs to feel like you are embraced by community, if you need to feel like you're not alone, if you need to just meet somebody that's going to give you a genuine hug on your neck and then not be a ugliness, baby, these conferences, and the tone was set by people like Monica Roberts, but these conferences, this is the place to get your love fest on.
Right. And so many people have tried to discourage me to go, like, oh, you can't mess with them, and they do this and they don't do that, and it's a mess. You have to be skeptical of people that try to discourage you from being in community,
especially when they give you no alternative, or they themselves aren't even connected to it. A lot of people will discourage you from shit that they don't go to.
Right.
And that's the gag. They're going off of what they heard, or a post they saw on the internet, or a rumor mill about somebody that was on the panel, or something that happened the previous year. And they're making these uninformed decisions to just not show up to panels and conferences. But just know, beyond the bullshit that may go behind the scenes with conferences, I've been on boards for conferences and things. And I'm going to tell you this, beyond the bullshit that goes behind the scenes, because yes, a lot of conferences are funded by nonprofits in the nonprofit industrial complex, and they have their own set of shadiness that they put on community, and the expectations of us to throw these things with shoestring budgets while y'all get maximum press. Like, there's all kinds of other issues behind the scenes. And all of those things are valid, but it does not change that some of the most affirming experiences in my entire life were at conferences, to the point where I brought my husband, I brought my family, my brother has come before, cousins have come before, people, you know what I'm saying? Like I have made it my business to include people in my life in the conferences, because there are workshops and meetings and things. And Monica Roberts and people like that were instrumental in making sure that, you know, everybody felt warm and accepted. I know for this coming BTAC, she was really working very closely with the trans amorous men's groups. And they were going to have panels this year. They were going to try to do a redo of what was supposed to happen years ago in Chicago. Yes, girl. So It's supposed to be a redo with similar characters. So, but the point is that she was the
At least
type of
we don't have to worry about no action this time if it's virtual, honey.
exactly. Even if it's not virtual, I know that she's one of them girls. It wouldn't have happened on her watch, and
Right.
that's why I encouraged my husband and some of these other men that are a part of these groups to really, really, reach out to her and figure out how they can get on the conferences. She was making it happen. And I know that she was deputizing Diamond to do some stuff, and like I just want to say, like, we just have to be very, very grateful for the gifting that she was and the gifting that community is. And I think segueing into our next topics is culture. Our culture is founded around us finding safe spaces to be ourselves. And those safe spaces may are unique and specific to us, and to the outside world they may look like something that is problematic or based in all these other things. And a lot of girls will start their transition, and the first thing that they will do is look at the culture, judge the women in the culture, and then say, I don't want to be a part of that. And they oftentimes will make it their narrative in life. Oh, I only hung out with straight people, and oh, I'm not connected to none of that shit. I don't deal with them girls. As if we are dirty, as if the work that is done for you to be able to be that kind of bitch didn't happen. So it is interesting that we need to shift that the girls in our community sometimes initially, I believe it's probably out of insecurity, maybe even, the insecurity around safety and your well-being. But if you don't connect to community at some point, and this is for my younger girls out here, you will miss out on a wealth of information that can make your life easier. And a lot of times when you hear the girls saying, I wasn't connected to community, baby, that life is a chop, because they haven't really been able to understand how to respond to things and react to things and advocate for themselves. And a lot of those girls, they will say, oh, I don't connect to the community, but you show up to the services that the community helped develop. You show up to the services that were based out of ballroom girls, that were based out of ballroom. You benefit from the stuff that came out of pageantry. You benefit from the stuff that came out of drag. You benefit from the stuff that came out of our culture. But a lot of girls, it's really a problem with them accepting that we don't serve any purpose we don't serve our own best purpose to deny ourselves. What were your thoughts, sis?
Well, let's zoom out. So how we got to this particular topic, and let me say this is all in love. I am a watcher of T.S. Madison shows on her platform, and she has a new show, T.S. Madison After Dark. And I was working this weekend, and I had the show playing in the background. And on this particular episode, they were saying the conversation had came up about Pose, and how they initially didn't watch Pose in the beginning because they thought it wasn't about them. And her son was on the panel, and it devolved into a conversation of, well, when I came into the scene, there was no such that we didn't have a ballroom scene, and I was hanging around the trade. And when I finally learned about the ballroom scene, I just didn't understand why you would get up in front of a group of gay men and have them judge you and battling girls, and that just wasn't my world. But then it went to, we did watch it, and I did see the similarities in the show. But to me, the thing that kind of turned me off was just the tone towards ballroom, when that is part of our culture. And this whole, but I also have to keep in mind that her audience is the cishets, and they kind of live for that stuff, especially when we're disparaging our own. And and this is, but I just think, I just find it ironic how you have that tone about like the ballroom scene, or just cultures that are built or based on Black queerness, but
Yes.
you on the other end you benefit from those same cultures. Like you're going to the pride event, and then she said something to the effect of, "Well, I'm only around them when I'm getting paid and I'm getting money," and it's just
How
like,
horrible is that?
says that seems very exploitative. Like, so you like you can only deal with us when we're paying you. Like, you're no different than Miss Thing from City Girls that said she don't want to have a gay son, but it's okay because she don't hate gay people because they do her hair and her makeup. And
That's
it's
how shady that comes off. And I don't think she realizes that by saying that, she's playing into the narrative that is something wrong with us.
right, and it's just, well, we were up in a straight club, and I just couldn't relate to that, and it's just like, or I couldn't relate to the show. And it's just like, well, sis, you yourself said, like, my first point is you yourself, tell your story about being a street level prostitute in Miami. And if I'm not mistaken, there is a culture associated with girls working a stroll or girls on a beat, and that's an inherently another part of our culture, which is inherently queer. You can't
Just like she wants somebody to not judge her. There's a lot of girls that even in ballroom and these other cultures would say that her as a porn star is not a part of the culture.
right, and it's like you weren't in those cishet straight clubs all of the time, because if you were that safe in those the clubs or in culture with them, you would have been that safe to go and then work alongside them in the daytime. But systemically, you could not do that.
And that's no judgment to her, but it's a judgment to the fact that the lack of understanding, even around you, even saying you didn't see yourself in ballroom, when ballroom is a culture that is founded on. So her judging girls that are in ballroom as, why would you go up there for these gay men? What she did not realize is that ballroom was founded in the early 1900s on the backs of Black and Latino trans individuals in New York who wanted to have an outlet and a safe space to express themselves.
And who were doing what? Sex work to survive and to
Thank
feed
you.
their families. So like, and stop acting like competing against each other is only something that Black LGBT people do. Black cishet people do the same thing with battle rappers and break dancers. Like competing and being beautiful and being ostentatious and showing how fab you are, that's a part of being Black.
What her denying ballroom is like saying, I don't do cookouts. I don't go to, I don't do Black events. It really comes off like that Trump supporter, not saying that she was in any way aligning herself, but I'm making the comparison to Black people that try to distance themselves from Blackness at the expense of their own people. And then I'm not saying that she intended it for it to come off that way, but it did come off like she was pandering to this larger narrative that a woman does not participate in these things.
Right. And it's just like, says that, and she's endemic of other trans women that feel like you don't need to, or you can't associate with like other trans women or other butch queens or whatever. And it's like, ballroom is a very valid part of our culture. The drag scene, Black drag scene is a very valid part of our culture. The J setting scene or whatever, that's a very valid part of our culture. And
Pageantry.
Yeah, pageantry is a part of our Black LGBT culture. And when we degrade it and then we cheapen it or acting like, well, that's not, like, it's okay to not do it if
right.
you do it, but just that extra stank on it, and then to then on the back end of that say, well, I was in the straight club, and it's like, well, girl, how were you any safer in the straight club than you were with the girls?
Exactly. And we just have to remember, like, that's a great example of, you have to remember that a lot of these people that have these large platforms, just because a lot of people follow them doesn't mean that they're the most knowledgeable, doesn't mean that they're the most connected, doesn't mean that they're they just happen to be popular. And popular is what people think now means advocate. popular does not mean that you're an advocate. Popular does not mean that you have the best interest of community. And just because somebody looks like you, we all know your skin folk is not necessarily your kinfolk. And I just want to push back at some of these leaders that are trying to make the world believe that I'm better than somebody. You're not better than anybody. If you didn't do it, fine, you didn't do it. But then don't go back and then say, and I don't understand why girls do it. If you don't understand it, seek the knowledge on your own, but don't get on your platform and show how ignorant you are to the world and denigrate your own. That's not
right. This is our culture, whether you are a part of it or not. It's our culture, and it kind of ties back into the Monica Roberts thing. It's about taking pride in our culture and what we do and what we can create and the impacts that we have left in the world that largely go uncredited.
Exactly. And for her to even and you know, like you said, back to what you were saying about her being a sex worker. So just like in the show Pose, just like in a lot of the world today, many of us, because of the lack of resources in life, are having a sex work is a way that a lot of girls start their transition. So it's no judgment to that. But the only difference between you, Madison, and the girls those girls in ballroom was they went inside off the stroll sometimes and you didn't.
Right.
Like went inside off the stroll and chose to engage in a community where they were mothers, where they were leaders, where they had a say-so and a power, where they were able to showcase their talents that the world wouldn't accept. I mean, so just because you weren't talented enough or you didn't desire to be a part of that culture at any point doesn't mean that the girls that decided to walk off the stroll and go inside and do something else and be a leader in some capacity, even when they don't necessarily are not able to be leaders in their jobs, in their communities, even in the world, they may have been looked down on as these small, you know, these low level, trashy, dirty people. But when they were able to go in the ballroom and put on the full armor, when they were able to go into pageantry and put on the full armor of what it means and their full glamour and really be a leader in something, that is powerful. And how dare any girl, not just her, because this ain't really about her per se. She just made some comments that we just didn't care for. But the deeper narrative here is that we have to stop making it seem like that parts of our culture don't apply because you personally didn't choose it. I have not been in ballroom. I'm not a ballroom girl. But that does not mean that I don't understand ballroom. It doesn't mean I haven't attended balls. It doesn't mean I don't have my ballroom faves. It doesn't mean that I'm not engrossed in the culture, because from a young age, I understood this is our greatness. This is
we have many cultures within our culture. Many.
It's just like how blackness developed hip hop. Ballroom is our hip hop. Pageantry is our hip hop. Like, it's our way of using our voices and channeling it into a constructive way in a medium where we can showcase our skills and talents. That's really what it is.
Right. And it's just like, we gotta stop we gotta stop shitting on parts of our culture to appeal to cishetness. Like we got because
what we do know is if she got killed tomorrow, them same people that was going up for her and when she was denying her culture would not even share the post, bitch.
Right. We have to stop shitting on our culture and devaluing our culture, because you know who's gonna see how we devalue it? White people, and they're gonna steal it and try to repackage it and make it their own. You know who's gonna see us when we try to distance ourselves from our sisters, saying, well, I don't do that, or I'm over here. What that is communicating to cishet people is, oh, she's a loner, she likes to be by herself, so she's a target. So I can do whatever I want to her, and because she's not in community, it's not really going to matter that much, because she already is apart from them. She thinks she's better than them anyway. Exactly. It's just like damn that. Like, come be a part of the community. Come be a part of the community, and it don't mean you have to walk a ball. You can spectate, but at the end of the day, these are your folks. These are your people.
Exactly.
These are your people. Take pride in it. Stop. And Madison, though you might not be in ballroom, you act like a ballroom house mother because you have all them queens all up and through your house. So stop acting like you're above it, girl, when it's in your nature. How you relate to the butch queens that you always have around you. Like
exactly. You may not call it a house, you may not call it that, but you're a mother. You have you have children. You have a male child that you call your daughter because
where do you think that comes from?
I mean, bitch. Where do you think
Where do
that
you
comes
think
from?
that comes from? It either comes from the ballroom or from the pageantry.
Exactly. And I'm pretty sure she was exposed to some residue of the culture, because how the fuck would you even know to do that?
Right.
Thank you.
Or it comes from the stroll, because they do that like it's different communities within our community. Like, so
But
like,
again, like you say, the girls on the stroll are the girls in ballroom too.
right. Or there are some girls on the stroll that never come to balls, but they interact with the girls that do go to balls, so they know something about it.
Exactly. The
So
two are interconnected for you to say something like that.
right, but we've got to stop shitting on our culture and devaluing our history, because if we do it, then they'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to stop shitting on our culture. We got to stop valuing. Oh, I went to the straight club and I got, like, for me, I was never one of those girls that really, especially when I was like deeply passable, or I was performing my womanhood in a way where I could, pass like that. I was never one of those girls that had to be around like cis het people all the time, because I knew who my people were, and I knew that we had our own things, and
Exactly.
I was empowered from being around that.
Exactly. And that's not to discourage or to judge the girls that, like you say, every city don't even have gay clubs. So I'm not saying that for the girls that don't have that capacity, or for the girls that choose not to, that means that's a reflection. Hell, I went periods of my life very early on, before I was connected to culture, where I was the girl that was only going to straight clubs because I was in college and that's where everybody was going and they had a college night. So it was very like I was doing that. But as soon as I found out that there was a place where I didn't have to be nervous if Trey came up to dance with me, as soon as I found out that there was a place where I could talk to other girls and I could walk into a room and it's a room full of people that look like me, that dance like me, that talk like me, that have similar cultural touchstones as me. It was so affirming. It was so connecting. And like, there's a lingo, there's a culture. Like, we are not somebody. What's really fucked up is, even before we had acknowledgement of it, we did a great job of world building for ourselves. And you are really cutting yourself off, like we've been saying, from the world that we've created, the safe world that we created within the world, by not even trying to connect. So it's not judging you if that's what you prefer, but still be knowledgeable and don't speak ill of it if that's not what you're into.
And also know, girl, that it's not completely safe, bitch. Don't be no fool.
Right. Nothing in this world is completely safe. So like, let's not give it that. And there are problematic parts of that culture. And maybe that's part of what she was trying to speak to. There is a part of the culture where gay men with their patriarchy have co-opted a lot of the leadership and make girls feel like that their purpose is to be a look and be a certain way. And that goes into some of the ways the girls perform femininity and the respectability politics, which I know we're going to talk about next. But to just to wrap this, just remember that we are unique, and that while the culture in large has had for a long time, we've flown under the radar, the lens is on us now. And what we say matters. How we paint it matters. The critiquing that we do, just like when as Black community, we say some things need to happen in-house. This is a situation where the critiques that we have of the culture, the ways that we want to improve it, we need to handle that in-house. And if you do have an issue with the way ballroom is set up and the way some of these other things are happening, that's fine and valid. And there are a lot of problematic shit that does get upheld that could be changed.
Right.
But don't ever forget where you came from. That is your bedrock, baby. And if you don't know that, you're going to be sadly confused when you think that the world, because you've been going to the straight clubs and you tell them that's going to give you a pass, because it doesn't. It doesn't. And to be real, just like with Monica Roberts and the work she did in activism, a lot of the acknowledgement for our culture even has become out of ballroom. And so even for her to even have that platform that she has, it's actual ballroom girls and their legacy and people living for them online, and the Laomis of the world and the people that were able to take ballroom and go mainstream with it. It's because of those girls that these networks were even considering giving Madison deals, because it's because of those girls that did pave the way through ballroom and the other ways and the other methods, sex work, all the other parts of culture. It's because of those girls that actually made it possible for her to be big dick bitch, and for her to be the girl on the computer shaking her dick, and now being allowed to be on TV. They weren't gonna, believe me, trust the world that we live in and the way they judge sexuality in general. You couldn't be the big dick bitch if it were not for ballroom girls and people that the people that the Tracy Africas of the world, the Laomis, the people that actually participated in that culture. It was a huge part of their transition, and they went mainstream before you. So don't forget your founders either, even in the blogging and the online content providing that you do.
Right.
For sure. Well, this transitions us perfectly, I guess, into our next topic is, in general, the respectability politics in community. Brianna, did you want to take the lead on this one?
No, you can take the lead on it.
Okay, cool. So increasingly, even before, before, I think I'll say now, for about 4 or 5 months online, I've really seen increasingly over and over and over. I'm in groups where literally every 3 posts will be a Black trans woman in a group with primarily Black trans women, sometimes in groups with all Black trans women. And they will come into the group and say things like, oh, if you're not on Moans, you're not a girl. Or if you can still come, you're not a girl. Or if you don't have bags, you're not a girl. Or if you don't look a certain way, think a certain way, act a certain way, or perform femininity in a certain way, if you're not real enough, if you don't have the right hair. I've heard girls reading somebody because it was like, oh, you must be a CD because you have on a synthetic wig. Bitch, what are you saying? Our community is on synthetic, bitch. Like, it just was so problematic, because what has happened is that access has happened, and these girls have now access to all of these things, and respectability politics have crept in. And when I say respectability politics, I'm saying comparing ourselves to a larger dominant culture that is based in white supremacy and anti-Blackness and anti-queerness, and using the logic of folks that don't give a fuck about us, that want to marginalize us as much as possible, that want to limit the girls that they want to accept and the girls that they want to give the light to. You're taking that same logic and you're throwing it on your own people. And now you're policing other people's transition. You're policing how they look, how they act, how they talk, how they walk, who they hang with, what clubs they go to, how they be in this world. And it is really fucked up to me. But I felt it was important to talk about it today, because as it relates to, even, like you said, accepting our culture, but also accepting our leadership, there's a lot of girls that think that transness is problematic. There's a lot of girls that think that if you don't want to be a cis woman or as close as possible, then you are not a woman, or that you're not trans. Not realizing trans is an umbrella term, and that, again, the reason why your motherfucking ass can call yourself trans, because the word didn't exist in the early thousands, in the late, not in the mainstream lexicon, it did not exist. So in order for you to get to that place where you now have this term that you can now tell people who's in it and who's not under it, you're forgetting the most important part of this process, which is, and for those of you, this is an inner community term, there's no shade to anybody, but it's because the bricks through sticks. It's because the bricks through bricks that we have the ability, the girls that had to live hard lives, that life hardened them, maybe physically, maybe spiritually, maybe whatever, but it's because them bitches were warriors who fought that we got to where we are today. And it's a slap in the face to everything that came before you, for you to then take the privilege that you have now, this ability to get surgeries paid for by Medicare, the ability to get your Medicaid titties, the ability to get your face film paid for by insurance, the ability to get your SRS paid for by insurance, your gender confirmation surgery paid by insurance. It's an offense to me and to the rest of the girls that have fought for these laws and for these ability and the ability for these things to be, for you to then now police girls. And I am talking about direct attacks, tagging girls in posts so we can read her. I'm talking about literally like going in on girls back and forth online. And the first thing is, oh, you a man. Well, hold the fuck up, sis. How the fuck are you gonna call another trans woman a man? And then the reason why you say that is, oh, look at her picture. Oh, she clocky as fuck. Look at her shoulders. That's a man. And I'm like, sis, that's fucked up, because the world is doing the same motherfucking thing to you, as real as you think you are. And the sick part about it is, it's usually not the girls that have a pot, a window, or a reason to be able to talk that talk the most shit. What were your thoughts, sis?
You know, me personally, I think I've talked about this on the podcast before. I've kind of opted out of the beauty game. I've opted out of the beauty matrix. I've opted out of
that.
So I no longer. I think I kind of reject the cis gaze of feeling like I have to look a certain way or I have to perform my womanhood in a certain way to get acceptance. Because for me, the reality is no matter how you look or how you perform or how you pass, it does not matter. If somebody is not going to like you because you're trans, they're not going to like you. And it's no amount of trying to put yourself into these boxes that it might delay the danger, but ultimately it's not going to keep you safe.
Well, let me say this is, you said something that was very, very, very interesting just now. You said how you don't no longer perform transness in a way, your transness or how you be. You no longer perform that in a way where you're trying to get this cis gaze. What does that look like? Like, what are the things that you changed that you no longer do that were so important to you before when you were trying to get that gaze?
Just my appearance, just how I just feeling like I had to be hyper femme all of the time, like always getting my hair done, always having makeup on, always like wearing the most feminine clothes, always like putting so much effort into passing.
Right.
Because and I'm not going to act like passing doesn't affect my ability to access certain things, because it does. And even with how I look now, I'm still able to pass in a way where I still am able to live like a life of anonymity or
confronted with the transness on a day-to-day basis,
right? Or pass. But I know at the end of the day, like, me looking beautiful or me being, that's not going to make a man love me any harder or make him want to come out of the closet for me. That's not going to stop these Republican senators and even some of these Democrats from passing these laws to take rights away from me. Me passing is not going to make these cis women allow me into their organizations and be one of their, like, if people are intent on not liking you because you're trans, it's no amount of passing, it's no amount of trying to perform like cisness that's going to make them accept you. And for me, I rather focus energy on loving myself on however I choose to show up on a particular day, and like looking in the mirror and not just loving the parts of myself that are able to pass, but loving the parts of myself that make me trans and make me feel different. And that's different for everybody, but we as trans people, like, everything does not fit into a perfect box, or loving parts of my personality that aren't completely femme and not beating myself up over it or feeling bad because of it. It's just like, we are not cis people, so cisness is never going to save us. It's just, and no shade, thank God for the binary people, because for me, folks that are non-binary, it kind of, if it forces me to redefine what it is to be safe, or just redefine what it is to be free. And also
Ooh,
challenging
yes,
people.
ma'am. That was good.
Yeah,
Redefining what it is to be free, bitch.
yeah, and just challenging how I want people to show up in my life, especially men.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because usually when we're dealing with these men, they're the ones that are really requiring us to jump through these femininity hoops so they can give us the bare minimum of attention. And I
Mm-hmm.
even had an interaction yesterday where a guy I connected with, he was like, "Oh, you not gonna have no heels on or not?" Sir, look, first of all, that's John talk. You sounding like a John.
Mm-hmm.
And two, when you're interacting with me, a professional working woman, I'm regular as fuck. So you're gonna get what you're gonna get, and you either gonna deal with it, or you could actually stop being cheap and go pay somebody that's gonna give you that fantasy. I'm not that girl.
Ooh, baby.
I have permission as a single woman who's doing stuff on my own, who's not having nobody do nothing for me, to show up as I am and be loved and be sexually pleasured, to have an orgasm or to have it. Like, I deserve that in my natural state. You
Yes.
need to know what I look like without no wig on or without no hair, and still affirm me in my womanhood. And I feel like because we're so forced into these boxes, we don't give the people in our lives the chance to really rise to the occasion, nor do
Mm-hmm.
we give ourselves to really we don't give ourselves the chance to rise to the occasion and demand more of the people in our lives. And I just think about our partners, because it's like, so what is he going to do once he sees you without all the makeup and your rawest form?
And you know what, sis? You have brought up some really, really good points. And I think well, I'm gonna let you finish, but I definitely have some points that I pulled from what you said.
Oh no, go ahead. No, I was basically finished. Go ahead.
Okay, no tea. So you mentioned redefining freedom, and I feel like there was so much of, and then this is speaking from the I, in my life. I grew up, and like any young girl, cis or trans, you have your ideals, you have your favorite celebrities. For me, it was Diana Ross, it was Dionne Warwick, um, it was even Dolly Parton, it was Jack A. Harry. It was all of these different personalities. It was the lady at the checkout at Food Lion that had the most overlong nails and the most awesomest hair that I'd ever seen. And she had like 5 chains and a herringbone as thick as a goddamn, as thick as a goddamn ruler, you know what I'm saying, around her neck. I mean, like, there were so many things that influenced me as a woman. And I borrowed, just like all people do. I borrowed bits and pieces from different people, or I was inspired by different people, not necessarily saying that I took anything from them. A lot of my femininity was already in me, but just like a lot of women, just like any woman, you have your role models and people that you look up to and people that you admire the style of. And because you admire it, you start to, be inspired by it. And then you begin to experience these things. And so for me, when I first transitioned, before I really settled into my personal internal self, I was only parroting what I thought woman was. And it took me going through years of like trying to figure out how I can be the least me possible, and trying to make sure, like you say, we're a full, I have always had beautiful hair, beautiful long hair, but I thought that my hair wasn't enough. So then I always wore, and I have very thick natural hair. I'm very 4CTs, or maybe, I have combinations of curls all in the same head. But the point is that I have very thick braided hair. And I always thought, to be a girl, I needed to have this long flowing hair. I thought that in order for me to look my best, I had to minimize my features as much as possible. So it meant always, having a face full of contour. It meant being done at all times. And I'm still that girl to a certain extent to this day. But now what I figured out though was I had to define for myself what my freedom looked like. And it started to feel like a trap. It started to feel like I needed to do these things because this is what being trans meant. And this goes into kind of like what we were talking about, and this is some of the, maybe the not so pleasant parts of ballroom and some of these other things, but transness has become competitive. And I do respect the girls that do compete on that level, and that's something that you choose to do. But for regular everyday life, to walk around feeling like you're in competition with somebody for something, or feeling like if I don't look a certain way, I can't go outside, it began to feel like a trap for me. And it took me embracing my natural afro and not having to wear wigs and weaves. It took me and natural hair, wearing natural hairstyles. It took me not feeling like I needed the long blonde wig, or needing the 6-inch heels, or needing to be dressed so sexually provocative all the time. Because what I realized was that woman is something that is not defined. There are masculine of center women. There are women that are our moms that aren't the most femme person in the world. We all have aunties, mothers, sisters, family members that will be considered tomboys, that don't necessarily have this perfectly white European definition of what beauty is. And it really, really was fucking with me because I have Black features. So then I hated my face, my whole face at a certain point. I wanted to have this little pointy chin and this really tiny little Janet Jackson nose. And I felt like I needed to have, the most curvaceous body in the world. And yeah, I did go get me some curves. But the reality of it is that none of that stuff defined me. And a lot of the work that I've even gotten done has been after I've been a grown woman and I made a choice, not based on anybody else, but based on me. A lot of these young girls, a lot of y'all young girls, y'all are making choices based on what you think being trans is. And what you're not realizing is woman, even trans woman, is not something that is monolithic. It's not something that is this set of rules. And one thing you said I really like, Brianna, was non-binary people and the non-conforming individuals. Those are the individuals that really, really help me to see I don't have to do all that. I don't have to do all that because my womanhood is secured. And I'm a woman when I decided, when I at 18 decided to say fuck it and began to start this process slowly the best way I could. I feel like that's when I started my transition. But we live in a world where, because of all of these benchmarks that we set for ourselves, there are some girls that would say, oh no, you really didn't begin transition until you got all of this shit done. There's girls that would say you really not transsexual until I got my titties. And that would have been stupid because I was a whole married woman. So it's just interesting to me that our community has defined itself based on these really, really tight, narrowly defined white Eurocentric ideals based in, keep it real. There was a part of community that at one point, there was a time where we had to go in order to even get on hormones, you had to go to some doctor who wanted to make sure you did what they considered a year of real life experience. And they assessed you based on how they felt you looked, how they felt you carried yourself, how you talked. They policed all of that before you could even get on hormones. And the Harry Benjamin standards of care were necessary in some ways to help to at least codify the process and give a blueprint for how it could look. But those standards were problematic from the jump because they were based from a white man's point of view, and it was based on a white Eurocentric version of what womanhood looks like. Black women in general tend to be stronger, taller, bigger, wider, bolder. And what the Harry Benjamin standards of care did was it told us that being a woman was demure. It was soft. It was how you sit. It was how you carried yourself. It was your deportment. And a lot of those things aren't organically a part of our life. And what it forced us to do was to ignore the uniqueness about ourselves. The fact that we are that we have masculine energy. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. And there are a lot of girls that probably just draw it up just then when I said that. But it's okay for you to be a trans woman and say, I have masculine energy as well. That does not mean that you're not a woman. It doesn't mean that you've lost any points. It acknowledges the truth of our existence, that we have a blended life that comes with a lot of great things that came with us, that come along with who we are, that came with our bodies, that come with our experience. And so now we're trying to police how you have sex. We're trying to police how you engage, how you talk, walk, look, and think, based on trying to deny masculinity in ourselves. And like you say, Brianna, that performative femininity, it can be a trap, and we have to redefine freedom. Another point that I want to make is a lot of girls out here are really, really frustrated that that these men are so objectifying, that they're so focused on a look. But then we uphold the look by judging men who are okay dealing with, we uphold the stereotypes, we uphold the oppression by holding up men, by judging men that actually say, I'm transamorous. We call them chasers. We denigrate them. We minimize the men's desires that want to love us. And it's purely based in that internalized transphobia. It's the idea that if you want me as I am, if you want me without titties, if you're okay with a girl without titties, if you are okay seeing me or doing things with me that don't fit in this real heteronormative box, then you are somehow flawed. And what it really says, sis, is that you don't love yourself as is. Because if you have to get all of these things to be who you are, that's your personal dysphoria. But then the problem is now you're policing even the people that would love you. And so then you're confused as to why your family is kind of still being shady towards you. And it may just simply be because you're performing femininity in a way that doesn't come off as natural, because you're trying to be something that you think other people want to see instead of who you really are. And I'm just keeping it real. Passing has nothing to do with how big your titties are, how big your butt is, how extra fembot you look. What passing to me really is when you get up every day and you found strategies to navigate in life unencumbered, and you're able to make it home safely. That to me is what we should be focusing on. Not all that extra other petty shit that the life puts on us. Because believe it or not, you're only helping the world judge us harshly when we do that to ourselves. You're only helping these DL men to want to have the most, physically advanced girl possible, but give her nothing, when you deny men that actually want to love you and actually want to stand by your side, that actually desire and prefer trans women, because there's a lot of girls that don't want men that prefer trans women. And that problem, we've talked about it previously on this episode and on several other episodes, but I think here too it applies. We have to shift the way we see ourselves and what performing femininity looks like, and actually give room for the expansion of it to include all types of expressions if we want to change the narrative that the world has about us. Because if you see yourself as the man, the world will too. If you make people feel small, or if you try to paint this narrative that I hate myself, the world will hate you back. If you want love, you have to look in the mirror, wig off, lash off, face off, bra off, clothes off, pre-op, and say, I'm still a woman. And if you can't do that, then that's something you need to work on, sis.
Before we get out of here, I just want to say fuck you to the Shade Room.
Yeah.
I just came across a story about them making Darius McCrary, a.k.a. Eddie from Family Matters, a story because he liked a post on Sydney Starr's page and told her she was pretty. Like, come on, stop with the bullshit. And an article just came out on a Shade Room last week that basically drugged them, talking about how their platform is anti-LGBTQ and how it they have a nasty anti-queer environment, and the founder is like, well, we're not anti-queer, we just want to give the people space to say whatever it is that they want to say. And like, what would be the real reaction if we only had one side to the story? We want to hear all sides.
But you're not showing all sides. They only paint. They only show the girls on there when the girls are related to exposing a celebrity. They're not talking about our greatness. They're not sharing that shit.
No, it's all that is that. And when you have a platform as big and as powerful as y'all have, in the face of blatant transphobia, of blatant cissexism, of blatant homophobia, you just don't sit back and raise your hands up and go, well, people are just going to. No, not if you're really intentional on creating a space to really create enlightenment and steer the conversation. You just don't put you just don't throw the match on the gasoline and be like, well, girl, well, you know what happens when a lit match hits gas. No. And y'all do this all the time. And this is why dark-skinned black trans women continue to be murdered and killed. This is why trans amorous men and trans attracted men don't feel like they can come and be honest with y'all about their attractions, because every time they have a moment of open affection with one of the girls, it has the potential to become a news story when it doesn't need to be. Like, so stop with the bullshit. Stop with the, oh, I don't want to be painted as anti-queer brush, when every step you take is anti-queer. Like, stop.
Let's also point out too that the Shade Room wants to think that they are a journalist. But I think that they're bottom feeders and they have the lowest journalistic standards. And I feel like they are all about trying to get a click. The reason why I bring this up is because I oftentimes will see that the Shade Room, because for businesses like the Shade Room, anybody that will call it, like they call in the name, that it's going to be some shade. But also, you have to understand that in this day and time, any click is a click, any view is a view, any follow is a follow, any share is a share. So we have to be careful too in accidentally promoting platforms that don't support us, even by sharing the things that they say online. Even if we're commenting on it in a way that we're critiquing it, you're still giving it life, because every time I click on your post, though on your comment section you may have said this is fucked up, I'm clicking, and the Shade Room now has my eyes, and clicks and likes and subscribes and shares. These things are not just things that are arbitrary. They make money. They base advertising based on these. They actually are mining our information when we click the websites, by allowing these different spy softwares and different things to track us. So let's also be cognizant of remembering, even in community, that like screenshot whatever the fuck you want to say and just hard copy it to your page if you want to quote something from an organization like that, because the reality of it is they don't give a fuck about us, and offending us drives their numbers, because right. All of us are going to go see what they looking at, and we're going to reshare it. And then when we reshare it, for every 5 of us that agree and whatever, we have our cis haters that lurk on our pages that will share what you just shared, and they will agree with the Shade Room. They will share to out the celebrity. And sometimes when, like you say, this particular, the guy from Family Matters, when we share those stories, we're outing him further. We're making it more of a platform. We're giving their platform more legs. So let's also remember, to do it in a way that is strategic, and to not drive content for them, because they don't give a fuck about offending us. Offending us makes them money. So let's figure out a way to cut off their funding sources. And for us, it needs to be, we're not even entertaining you at all. Fuck your website.
Yeah, girl, that just puts me off, girl, because this did not, and girl, this just goes to show. But I know a butch queen is behind this because who else is following Sydney Star? Who else is following a butch queen? A butch
That's
queen.
a deeper conversation for another episode, bitch. The way gay men have betrayed us, bitch.
Yeah, but I know a butch queen is behind this, but like we have to end. Girl, I shared the post, but you know I put my spin on it. But it's just
Right, and that's not a problem. And we have a platform, so you're as another platform content provider sharing it in that way. But I'm talking about for the girls that will put it up on their post and actually kind of key and actually kind of low key kind of encourage the outing. Like, girl, that's not okay.
yeah,
Because
and the
really,
thing is, we don't even really know if he is trans amorous or not. But it's just the fact that a cis het man can't even say you look good or
without
like
being
without that
questioned.
being a story when that's the type of world that we're trying to create where men can say that and they don't have to turn around and beat the shit out of you and kill you because they feel ashamed.
Mm-hmm. I have cishet male friends, and they will often tell me that they have had to check the dog shit out of people who will assume that because they are friends with me, that somehow makes them, oh, you must be down with that shit. Well, why would you even have one of them as a friend? And luckily I have the kind of cishet guy friends, some that I've known from college, some that I've known professionally, some that I've known through my social circles that will advocate, that love them some Samaya and will wear a nigga out of behind me. And they don't want to fuck me, and they're not a part of my life in that way where, you know, it's like some deep-seated little sneaky thing. And they tell me that I'm pretty. And I don't understand why we live in a world and why the girls even sometimes will try to like, oh girl, like just because somebody tell you pretty, sis, don't mean he want to be with you. Just because some man tells another girl she's pretty doesn't mean he's trans amorous. We're beautiful fucking creatures. And I just want us as a community to be more empowered to think higher, so we're not inadvertently carrying the narrative that to want us is to, or to even be around us, or to even compliment us means, oh, he must be gay, or he must be into the girls, or he must be down. Like, no, you don't have to be down to think that you're beautiful, sis. That doesn't necessarily imply that on its face. But you know, that's the world we live in. And I just want, on Black grown trans woman talk, I want us to be accountable and us to remember that these platforms don't give a fuck about us. So Shade Room, like if we gonna cancel, we should cancel these, not necessarily always just people. We should be canceling these institutions that have benefited and become the organizations that they are off of Sydney Star stories, off of, you know, this girl was caught taking a picture with this celebrity stories. Like, y'all have to remember that shit there is why people feel like it's okay to deny us. And even some people, because of fear of being outing, will kill us. Oh my God, I took a picture with her. I'm gonna kill that bitch. She should have told me. Why would I have to tell you that I'm trans to take a picture? Why? Because the Shade Room will pick up the picture and will make this man's life hell, and he will feel away because he didn't even know. And it's not, you didn't have to know. Like, what was the point in me telling you in that moment? I'm a human being in a public place. Like, you taking a picture with me, or you being seen with me, or someone taking a picture of us talking doesn't mean anything. But in the world we live in, that's the reason why you have men saying dumb shit like, I'd rather have, there's a thing online now where the people are asking, would you rather have a thought daughter or a gay son? And you would be gagged at how many people in our culture are so transphobic, so effeminophobic, so homophobic, that they would rather have a family member that is, you know, that is kind of doing, you know, doing things that aren't necessarily the best. We will uplift the drug dealers and these other things in culture that aren't necessarily the most positive. But heaven forbid you just happen to be trans and exist in a cishet space and get caught. Oh, bitch, you were hiding, you were tricking. Like, we just gotta remember in community, like, let's not keep that narrative going by like y'all get out of Eddie Winslow's inbox trying to make it a thing. Like, let's remember that we have to create a safe space for people to appreciate us. Or once again, like with respectability politics and all these other topics we talked about today, you're shooting your own fucking self in the foot.
Yeah, girl. So shout out to Sydney Star. She is beautiful. She is
Absolutely
pretty,
gorgeous.
always has been. And,
Always.
hopefully one day we can live in a world where a black cis het man can compliment a trans woman openly, girl, and it not be a fucking big deal.
Exactly. Also, shout out to T.S. Madison. I live for you, girl. And now I don't want to end this podcast because I disagree. I critique something you said, that the narrative gets out that box number 512 has a problem with her. I don't have a problem with
we don't have a problem with her, but
I still watch the shit, girl.
yeah,
Just watch what the fuck you say.
We are all content creators and nobody is above critique.
And I'm not in the business of canceling other trans women who have different opinions than me. So that's fine, but I have my opinion and Brianna had hers, and we shared our opinion today. That doesn't not in any way mean that I still follow, like, and subscribe to all her shit, and I make a point to be a supporter because I know that if we don't fucking do it, nobody else will. So shout out to T.S. Madison. Love you, girl. Love all of your ministries. I even love your porn, bitch. It's no shade. So I'm not... I'm not.
Nobody is taking your place from history because no shade. She really made it comfortable for the girls to embrace their whole bodies, including their penises, if they did not want bottom surgery. And it's a lot of black men that follow her. A lot of black men I've connected with that are financial supporters of hers. And when she came on the scene, she really took everything to the next level. So
she did. So yes, shout out to her. And I want to just give her this personal acknowledgement. She's one of the few girls and this is even before her platform that actually took what she was doing in sex work and made it an empire. And that's worth pointing out because I want to give her some life. Like, you sis have really, really changed the motherfucking game. And a lot of these bitches, particularly in the girls that are transitioning out of sex work or making sex work a personal enterprise, you have set a standard. And I want to acknowledge you for that. Like, you the girl putting out your own content on your own network when a lot of girls was going to Black Tea Girls and these other things and getting $500. Like, you took it and made it your own, and I have to respect that. And I also love the fact that you have the kind of men that I like that are in your scene. You actually, and I can tell that because it's produced by a trans woman, it actually features the men in a way that a lot of black men, in a way that a lot of these white porn production companies don't give a fuck about. They want to see black dick with their white booty holes, bitch. They don't give a fuck about black intimacy. And so she does showcase in her porn a black intimacy that is not really shared that much in mainstream porn. So I shout out to T.S. Madison, girl, I live.
Yeah, shout out. So we've done an episode, I guess before we get out, rest in power to Monica Roberts.
Yes.
We are forever indebted to you for everything that you've done for this community and the mark that you have left on the world. I know that, because of what you did, it gives all of us content creators, all of us are journalists, it gives us permission to bring it through how we're bringing it through.
Yeah.
And it's not remiss, your impact on what we do, and we just hope that you've more than earned your rest.
Before we go really fast, before we do our outro, is it possible that we could just take a moment of silence to acknowledge Monica Roberts, just like a 5-second moment of silence? Rest in power, Monica Roberts. That felt good, sis. I enjoyed this episode.
Yes. Are you going to take us out?
Yes. So before we go, I want to thank you for all of your support for box number 512 podcast, Grown Black Trans Woman Support. I also want to thank you for your support for my individual podcast, The Lioness Still Lives, Conversations with the Black Trans Goddess. I want you guys to know that we do not take for granted all of your interactions, all of your love and support. Feel free to like, follow, and subscribe to us on all of our social media platforms. Also go into anchorfm.com, click on the donation tab, and support a Black trans business.
And rate and review.
Also, rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on all of these different platforms, because all of these things help and drive our content and improve our reach and improve our placement and all of that stuff. So you guys, please continue to support us, and we love you and we thank you. This has been another episode of Box Number 512 Podcast. I am the Lioness.
And I am Aeon.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Box Number 512 Podcast.
Grown Black Trans Woman Talk.
Don't forget to go to our Anchor page to become a monthly sponsor.
And also feel free to like, follow, and subscribe to us on all of our social media platforms.
And also, please don't forget to rate and review our podcast. Every comment matters.
And lastly, please follow and tune in for our live interactive Facebook show every Friday
on Facebook and YouTube. Until next time,
I'm the Lioness.
And I'm Aeon. Bye.